Well, we're just about a week into the NHL season, and there is a lot to unpack so far. Hey, everyone, Rob Wong, joined alongside by Postmedia's national NHL columnist, Michael Traikos. And Michael, we have to begin in Toronto, where the Maple Leafs have suffered losses to Arizona and Montreal, two of the worst teams in the NHL last season. Is there cause for concern when it comes to the blue and white?
Yeah, you don't want to overreact 1 week into the season, Rob, but we knew how this was going to go. You missed the playoffs so many times like the Toronto Maple Leafs did. And, everything is just heightened. And we talked about this earlier on. Sheldon Keefe entered the season already on the hot seat. He hadn't even coached a game in the regular season, and people are already talking about, is it time to bring in Barry Trotz? And I don't think that conversation is going to quiet down, even if the Leafs go on a 2-3 game winning streak. But let's face it, you lose to Montreal, like you said, and Arizona. That's literally the two worst teams in the NHL last year. Arizona's like dying to get Connor Bedard in next year's draft. They're purposely organizing things so that they don't win games this year. So to beat the Leafs at home is, it's unacceptable for the Leafs. And, twice now in a week, Sheldon Keefe has had to call out his players, saying his elite guys aren't playing like elite guys. You can do that once, maybe even twice, but, that's going to get old. So Keefe's got to be concerned that he might lose the room. And at the same time, he has to get some wins. So, yeah, it's early, but it's not too early to start freaking out if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan.
All right, sticking in Ontario, the Ottawa Senators, no doubt, had a really strong offseason, but as it stands right now, a bit of a tough start to the year. The sportsbooks have the Senators as underdogs to make the playoffs at this point. Are the Sens and their fans getting a big dose of reality right now? Maybe this team wasn't as good as some people thought coming into the year.
Yeah, you know what? And count me as one of those guys. I thought this was the year that the Senators are going to make the push. And, like we said about Toronto, it's still very early. This is a Sens team that is still without Cam Talbot. I don't think they've seen really the best of Alex DeBrincat yet. So there's two new faces there that haven't really found their way or even had a chance to play yet. That being said, it's going to be a dogfight. Let's face it. Detroit is another team that's trying to make that push. Maybe even Buffalo is trying to make that push. At the same time, I don't know who they're going to unseat in the Eastern Conference. Like, all 8 teams that made the playoffs in the East last year finished with 100 points. I don't think that's going to change. You look at the start that Boston got off to already, 3-0 after the first 3 games. Washington's looked good. Pittsburgh's on fire. I know we're going to talk about them later on. So, it's tough. If you're Ottawa, you cannot afford to get too far behind the pack. And just how we're talking about Sheldon Keefe and job security, I think DJ Smith, the head coach of the Ottawa Senators, has to be wondering if this losing streak stretches on and on, is he going to be a guy that gets replaced early on in the season?
So as you mentioned, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby, one of the NHL scoring leaders to begin this season. Now, they did suffer a tough loss at the hands of the Montreal Canadiens as well. But is there something left in the tank here for Crosby and company?
Yeah, isn't it great to see, we keep talking about the young guys, and I don't think Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews are so young anymore. But, the new faces of the NHL, and yet we got a guy in Sidney Crosby who's in his mid-30s who's just tearing it up as usual. And, the one thing with Sid is, can he stay healthy for 82 games? He missed more than a dozen games last year. I think it's been like 5 years since he played in a full 82-game season. So that's going to be one thing to watch. But I think it's just great to see Sid come out of the gates as hot as he is, and really not that surprising. I remember talking to Nathan McKinnon in the summer about this, and obviously McKinnon and Crosby train together out east every summer, and he said, beware of Sid. He wants to keep playing. This is McKinnon talking about Sidney. He wants to keep playing as long as he's an elite player, and it was very important for Sid to prove that he's still in that upper echelon player. So, it's only been a handful of games, but so far so good. And, that Penguins team, we keep waiting for them to age out and miss the playoffs, but haven't missed the playoffs since Sidney Crosby was a rookie. And based on how things are looking right now, I'd pencil them in for a playoff spot again.
Yeah, they look really strong to begin this season. And finally, you talked about Connor McDavid. Well, his Oilers went out this offseason and picked up Jack Campbell as their prize free agent, signing a 5-year, $25 million deal. So far this year, it has not worked out. A .598 goals against average, an .851 save percentage. We saw the ups and downs in Toronto. Is there, cause for concern when it comes to the goaltending situation in Edmonton?
Yeah, Edmonton is having some goaltending troubles. So is Minnesota. So is Toronto. It's a long list so far early in the season, but if you're the Oilers, you go on in the summer and you get Jack Campbell, you think you've solved everything. You're not going back to an old Mike Smith again. And here we go again. Jack Campbell not looking as sharp as he needs to be. And, the Oilers have enough offense where against Vancouver, they are able to kind of outscore their problems. But, that's not a recipe for success. It's definitely not a recipe to win a Stanley Cup. So, Jack Campbell, I think the biggest problems with him over the years has been between the years versus his actual play. So, we'll see how strong he is mentally during this stretch if he can get over this hump.
All right, well, it should be really interesting to see what happens when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers and Jack Campbell the rest of the way. For all of Michael Traikos' work, head over to Postmedia and find him on Twitter at Michael_Traikos.